Good evening and welcome to this Wednesday, December 7, 2011 edition of the Infowars Nightly News. I'm Aaron Dykes. Coming up later in the program, Alex did an exclusive interview with Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo. You probably saw him on the show today, but you didn't see this, so stay tuned. Of course, it is the 70th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack, the false flag that was ubiquitously known around the world before 9/11. That, of course, among other things, led to World War II. U.S. entry into anyway, as well as Japanese internment camps. Now in the modern day, in the age of 9/11, we have more detention camp news. Developments there from Paul Joseph Watson. Detention camp order follows preparations for civil unrest. Of course, we reported last night that KBR is subcontracting to outfit its emergency environment centers, and we detailed that in Kurt Nemo's article, but Paul points out how they've been preparing for civil unrest since at least 2008 in the open. KBR, of course, had the contract in 2006 to build the camps. Now U.S. authorities are preparing for such eventualities on home soil, with major police departments like the NYPD staging mobilization exercises to train police to prepare for civil disorder in the United States. And there's been lots of other stuff as well. The Army Times reporting that there would be some 400,000 troops on homeland soil. Other plans announced in 2008 to station some 20,000 troops inside the U.S. for domestic security. U.S. Army War College orders preparing for civil unrest and a whole lot more. Of course, there's bills like the National Emergency Centers Act, H.R. 645, that Alex has covered at length, establishing the chain of command for these detention centers, putting it all under the Homeland Security Department. And why not? Of course, things are only going to get worse economically, and that is the direction we're headed there. Among other things, Obama is reiterating his call for a national police force, which would be a civilian police to match the size and power of our armed forces, in the words of his 2009 statement, which would all be a, quote, stability police in the conditions of economic unrest. We have that clip now.
Next, Obama ordered the Defense Department to issue DoD Directive 1404.10, establishing a 1 million person civilian army under his control. Simultaneously, Obama launched USAService.org. The new website deceptively masquerades as a federal agency, but in reality is a recruiting tool building a separate, completely private army outside of government that takes orders directly from Obama's controllers. Barack Obama has refused to rescind Presidential Decision Directive 51, signed by George W. Bush. The directive plainly states the president is a dictator and that Congress is ceremonial.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
Of course, this has nothing to do with Barack Obama, the president, love him or hate him or whatever. This has to do with continued executive overreach. It's been going on at least since the Civil War, but it's been especially troublesome with the last 4 or 5 presidents. And you see what happens under Rex 84 and other continuity of government plans, all these secret detention plans, contingencies for emergencies of whatever kind, all under the executive branch and all these agencies, including FEMA and Homeland Security, all very dangerous. Now, if you weren't paying attention last night, Kurt Nemo and Alex Jones broke an exclusive. We got documents from inside Kellogg Brown Root, the Halliburton subsidiary, and they are now contracting services for the FEMA camps they've been building openly since at least 2006. Now they're activating them by staffing them with everything from temporary fencing and barricades to laundry and medical services, power generation, refuse collection, catering, and a whole lot more. And they've broken it into 5 regions, as you see there on the map, which would mesh nicely with the 10 governor regions and the Homeland Security 10 regions, 2 regions per group, I would imagine. Now, meanwhile, Gingrich, if you're wondering what kind of candidate he will be, Kurt Nemo's drug out a speech he gave for C-SPAN's book review in 2008. where he, among other things, advocated splitting the FBI into two factions and allowing at least one of those factions to openly violate the Fourth Amendment. It's not enough that they set people up as patsies and call it terrorism, but even more troubling, Gingrich said at least twice in this clip, I don't know if we have it here, maybe they could tell me, that the government should occasionally allow a terror attack in order to remind the people there's still a war on terror. Let's go to that clip now. We do have it.
Why have we not been hit by since 9/11, which is a good question. My first answer is I honestly don't know. I would have expected another attack, and I particularly thought, I was very, very worried and talked to the administration when we had the sniper attacks. Because the sniper attacks were psychologically so frightening to the average person because of their randomness. That I thought, I was amazed that the bad guys didn't figure out how to send 10 or 12 sniper teams. I think there are a couple things, though, that we tend not. This is, by the way, one of the great tragedies of the Bush administration. The more successful they've been at intercepting and stopping bad guys, the less proof there is that we're in danger. And therefore, the better they've done at making sure there isn't an attack, the easier it is to say, well, there was never going to be an attack anyway.
Just disgusting. And the tragedy is they continue to milk more government power out of unfortunate events, which, well, you know who's behind them. Just disgusting. Of course, he also says torture's good, waterboarding's acceptable, and not torture. We have that article here. In addition to advocating constitutional relativism, Gingrich recently stated he doesn't consider the practice of waterboarding to be torture, and that was during the Fox News debate. Of course, you saw where he almost wasn't able to file in Ohio, but then he was able to. They always bend the rules for their insider candidates. Imagine if Ron Paul was in that position. Gingrich doesn't even have an electoral facility. He doesn't have the structure behind him, yet somehow he's at the top of the polls and everything. Smells real funny. Gingrich struggles with state deadlines for filing. That's been superseded. Romney, it's been revealed, spent nearly $100,000 to hide his records when he was governor of Massachusetts. Money he spent to replace computers, and also is previously reported to replace hard drives so he could keep all the data and internal emails and so forth and so on. However, Teresa Dolan, former director of administration for the governor's office, told Reuters that Romney's efforts to control or wipe out records from his governorship were unprecedented, and that in her 23 years as aide to successive governors, no one had ever inquired about or expressed the desire to purchase their computer hard drives before Romney's tenure. They're saying it's not illegal, but it is strange. Of course, there wasn't as much of a computer age prior to Romney, but still, what is he hiding? I guess potentially a ClimateGate type scandal. Look what happened when those emails came out. In lighter news, Herman Cain, we didn't cover this before, so we're covering it now. In his speech where he quit the race for the presidency, maybe still a vice presidential candidate, we don't know, quoted Pokemon. Why does he do something like that? To try to be cool with the people. All these candidates want to relate to ordinary people, while ordinary people have no clue what's going on behind these puppet figures inside the real government. Let's play this now.
Let me leave you with this. And I believe these words came from the Pokemon movie.
Life can be a challenge. Life can seem impossible.
It's never easy when there's so much on the line. But you and I can make a difference.
Life can be a challenge. Life can seem impossible. It's never easy when so much is on the line.
Well, Herman Cain, federal head of the Kansas City branch of the Federal Reserve, a very powerful branch in his district there. He can't have all the fun. Alex, too, has drawn from Japanimation in the past. Let's check that out.
I refuse to go along with this, and I'm seeing through all of your lies, Barack Obama, you wicked, wicked devil!
Yeah. So it's funny to pay attention to the occasional gaffes that some of these candidates and other public figures make. What worries me more, though, is the things that aren't a gaffe, like Al Gore's statement to Bob Woodward. It was in The Hill today that the public knows less than 1% of what happened during the Clinton administration, less than 1% of what went on behind closed doors, all the secret, corrupt inside deals and all the rest of it, trading secrets to China, everything. It's just disgusting what really happens in this government, and yet the public is focused on pop culture issues and pop culture candidates. Just makes me sick. In other news, a mystery company is buying up U.S. gun manufacturers. In recent years, many top-selling brands, including the 195-year-old Remington Arms, as well as Bushmaster Firearms and DPMS, leading makers of military-style semi-autos, have quietly passed into the hands of a single private company. It's called the Freedom Group, and it is the most powerful and mysterious force of the U.S. commercial gun industry today. Is it freedom for one company to own it all? I don't know. People have speculated in the past that Soros, among others, may have been behind this group in an attempt to buy out U.S. gun companies and ultimately dismantle the industry. He's apparently not behind it, but a hedge fund, Wall Street type named Feinberg is. He's part of the Cerberus Capital Group, a big hedge fund that has more than $20 billion in assets and also runs this company. Apparently, Dan Quayle also tied to it. Something to watch as Obama continues to be the best gun salesman in history, and Americans everywhere will have to fight for their Second Amendment. In TSA news, this business about the old ladies getting strip search is only expanding into a bigger story. We must keep an eye on this outrageous agency who's put so-called security. Benjamin Franklin warned that you can't have security when you give up liberty. This agency who's put security ahead of even dignity, again subjecting people we should be protecting the most, vulnerable old people, to the worst abuses of these searches. TSA's never stopped one terrorist. They haven't done anything for us. 3 elderly women say TSA agents made them pull down their pants in underwear that's in local10.com. It's degrading. It's like someone raped you, Sherman said. That's one of the victims. They didn't know how to handle a human being. That's right. I've seen this at airports many times. For instance, old woman in a wheelchair, they'll prop her up against a post, make her stand when who knows if she even can stand. I don't know all the cases, but I've seen a lot of targeting of the very elderly. Goes on to describe people with colostomy bags and everything. And among other issues, the TSA people are not even aware of some of these medical conditions that older people have to deal with, and it is degrading. Of course, they say, however, proper procedures were followed in the cases of the elderly strip search, and they say that's not strip searching anyway. We just call it such and such procedure. The American Dream has 9 examples of elderly Americans being strip searched or sexually molested by TSA agents at airports. These are, for the most part, all recent cases. Lenore Zimmerman, that's the old lady, 110 pounds, you've heard about in the news. Also, Ruth Sherman, who's got herself in the news, saying, "This is private for me. It's bad enough that I have it. I had to pull down my sweatpants and my underwear down so they could see, this bag that she had in her pants, this medical bag." Another grandmother with a metal knee implant says she was touched all over, felt molested, wanted to take a shower afterwards. A 61-year-old retired special education teacher had an issue with his urostomy bag when he was patted down, which ended in him having urine all over his legs and pants. The TSA agent didn't even acknowledge that he had caused the urine to be spilled all over his body, sending him on his way to the flight. Of course, none of these people are terrorists, not even close. Back in June, a 95-year-old woman with cancer forced to remove her adult diaper. I think that was the case where it was leaking. A female cancer survivor was required to show her prosthetic breast. A 71-year-old man with knee replacement surgery had his pants forcibly ripped off. A 94-year-old woman pulled out of line, publicly molested by TSA agents at Raleigh Durham International. They groped her all over her body. Another cancer survivor treated at JFK Airport in New York was asked to step aside and have her breast area examined. She was a breast cancer patient and had bilateral mastectomy in April, and tissue expanders put it in the way to make reconstruction at a later date. Just just no recognition at all of the very essence of the country we're supposed to protect, to preserve the way of life, give everyone the best opportunity under our Constitution and freedom of rights. Instead, everyone's subjected to it. Why do they do these things? It all has to do with that indefinite detention stuff. They're getting us ready to all be treated like slaves no matter what. Now, if the economy breaks down and there's civil unrest anywhere, I would imagine we're going to be treated this way just absolutely anywhere in public. Streets, malls, you name it. They've all talked about it. Now, in other news, a school in the UK has turned off the heat to, quote, save the planet. Head Rob Benzie switched off the radiators to show how the secondary school could cut down on its carbon footprint. He said it was an experiment and that it was successful. A lot of the parents and teachers were outraged, but I guess we can expect to see more of that. Now, meanwhile, in Spain, toilet paper restrictions are imposed on school children under the latest austerity cuts. You notice how the stuff to save the environment is the same kind of things they do under austerity, just always giving you less, keeping you from being able to consume or do basic stuff like use toilet paper, the stuff that happens in communist countries. I've heard firsthand accounts in places like Cuba where you can't even buy toilet paper because of the way the country is controlled and the other issues there. Just disgusting. Firefighters watch as couple's home burns to the ground because they hadn't paid a $75 subscription fee. That happened in Tennessee, but the mayor said there's no exceptions and they refused to put out the fire. I've heard other cases like this. The woman told local TV station WPSD 911 said the fire department were in fact dispatched and they showed that they were on the scene. You could look out my mom's trailer and see the truck sitting at a distance. On the South Fulton Fire Department website, their mission statement reads that the mission is to protect the lives and property of its citizens, but only if you pay the fee, and provide good public relations through fire safety education to all businesses and schools. And it goes on to describe how the home of Jean Cranick, who also lives outside the city limits, burned down last October. She had forgotten to pay the fee and begged the firemen with money to put out the fire, but they refused. Now, why couldn't they just give some kind of punitive fee after the fact rather than actually letting the home or trailer or whatever the case may be burn down? Seems a bit extreme, but then again, if you look at the history of fire departments, back in the Roman days, it was basically an organized mafia where if you didn't pay the fee, they would burn your house down on purpose. You probably also remember back in the early days of New York City, as depicted in Gangs of New York, volunteer forces were a threat unto themselves. While they posed as firefighters, they allowed buildings to burn, and firefighters recruited volunteers from street gangs who then brawled and beat up rivals in other companies rather than putting out the fire. I think we have a clip from that now.
Hurry up, man, before the black Joe gets there! There were 37 amateur fire brigades, and they all fought each other. The black Joe on their way, please! And the thing that's night out here! Okay, boys! Get the hose out! It's the black Joe! Go get him! Nothing left. Go back to the power, you fool! Stop it, for God's sake, they're taking everything! In your next time of trouble, man, call on Tammany first. It's not too late, you can still save my house!
Now, we have some breaking news coming up after this short break on Fast and Furious, but first I want to remind you we have a holiday special going on for PrisonPlanet.tv memberships. It's one of the best ways you can help fund this operation and get out our message to as many people as possible. We're trying to reach TV platforms and a whole lot more. You can get really good discounts on that, and there's another discount where you can get it with 18 packaged DVDs in the plastic wrap and everything. Perfect way to give presents this holiday season by giving information rather than plastic junk you get from somewhere that was made in China, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, $39.95 for the yearly subscription. You could share it with 5 people. $129.95 for the subscription that you could share with 18 DVDs you can give or watch yourself. So we'll be back after this break. Of course, we have an exclusive interview Alex did with Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo as well, coming up.
What's up with these sorry politicians? Lots of bark, but when it's showtime, whimpering like little shih tzus. You want big cuts. Ron Paul's been screaming it for years. Budget crisis? No problem. Got $1 trillion year one. That's trillion with a T. Department of Education? Gone. Interior, Energy, HUD, Commerce? Gone. Later, bureaucrats. That's how Ron Paul rolls. Want to drain the swamp? Ron Paul. Do it.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there. Infowars.com.
Aaron Dykes back on the Infowars Nightly News. As I mentioned, we do have the Art Acevedo exclusive interview coming up. But first, we have breaking news. Paul Joseph Watson writes, confirmed ATF plotted to use Fast and Furious to demonize the Second Amendment. ATF created the problem so they could be the solution to it. The old Hegelian formula. As we postulated when the scandal broke, the Fast and Furious program that saw the same ATF deliver guns into the hands of Mexican drug gangs was admittedly exploited to demonize the Second Amendment and push new gun control regulations. Documents obtained by CBS News show the BATF discussed using their covert operation Fast and Furious to argue for controversial new rules about gun sales. And then we have those CBS documents now where they discuss how they've uncovered, the connection to these gun rules. Bill, you could see if these guns were all purchased from the same licensed gun dealer and at one time. We are looking at anecdotal cases to support a demand letter on long gun multiple sales. Thanks. So, of course, they cannot demonize and do away with the Second Amendment all in one blow, as it's a fundamental right, number 2 in the list of Bill of Rights under the Constitution, not supposed to be violated under any conditions. Yet they want to whittle away at it, erode it. You saw where they tried to make the 4 border states comply with purchases of more than 2 guns, reporting a 2-page sheet on all the buyer's details. Meanwhile, they knowingly put the guns into the Mexican drug gangs' hands. They knowingly allow these cartels to ship in the drugs with cover and everything. Just disgusting what goes on in this government. And we knew all along they were using this to try to target the Second Amendment. There's Obama's quotes with the Brady campaign talking about going after the Second Amendment by stealth and so forth and so on. We'll keep an eye on that, and we'll, of course, have more information on it tomorrow. Alex will be back live on the radio. Meanwhile, the Saudi prince has called for the kingdom to acquire WMDs and, moreover, wants a unified armed force and defense structure for the entire Gulf Cooperation Council, which is pretty much the entire peninsula minus Yemen. Ben Turkey told his audience, why shouldn't we commence the building of a unified military force with a clear chain of command? But if our efforts and the efforts of the world community fail to bring about the dismantling of the Israeli arsenal of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons, and from preventing Iran acquiring the same, then why shouldn't we at least seriously study all available options, including acquiring WMDs, so our future generations will not blame us for neglecting any courses of action that will keep looming dangers away from us? That's somewhat sensible, I suppose. Everyone has a right to defense. Of course, we don't want to see the region go further into flames or escalate into a World War III scenario. Now, if we're going to go after Iran for developing nuclear energy, why don't we go after Bill Gates, who's going nuclear with China and a new plan to use depleted uranium? His company, Terror Power, says its traveling wave reactor would run for decades on depleted uranium and produce significantly smaller amounts of nuclear waste than conventional reactors. All these new designs are going to be incredibly safe, Gates told the audience. They require no human action at all to remain safe at all times. So let's let a billionaire run free and unilaterally, geoengineer the planet. push GMO on Africa and all regions of the world, run a seed bank in the Arctic, and then sell nuclear power to China, stuff that wouldn't be legally allowed in the United States, and say, oh, I hope for the best, it's always going to be safe. Well, why don't we put sanctions on his foundation and his splinter companies and go after him instead of Iran? I'd sleep better at night that way anyway. In other news, this was a few days ago, but we didn't cover it, how microchip jerseys are changing hockey fans' experience. This year, the Tampa Bay Lightning introduced a replica team jersey equipped with the radio frequency chip embedded in the sleeve that fans can scan at stadium stores to receive discounts on refreshments and team merchandise for all season ticket holders. The promotion has worked. It helped spur a near twofold increase in season ticket sales this year. The chip isn't the only difference in the new exclusive jerseys. They also have a patch identifying wearers as season ticket members and giving the most loyal fans the options to personalize their jerseys with custom names and numbers. Ooh, very trendy. Meanwhile, each chip also has a unique ID allowing the team to track who buys what. So there you have it. Once again, under the guise of bread and circuses, they bring in the police state. I guess what else do you expect? It's all very trendy. Of course, that's how it's always been. Alex was reporting on the nightclubs and whatnot that were doing VIP RFID chips implanted under the skin that people took voluntarily to get in the cooler parts of these clubs. Ooh, it's glamorous, sham press event to promote glamorous B system. And Alex said it doesn't get any more bone-chilling than this. They're going to sell microchips as the ultimate in trendiness. And now we have the exclusive, very trendy team jerseys with the microchips in there. Nice graphic, by the way. RFID gets under the skin from 2006, bringing up how access control and security systems so the United States is behind in embracing the technology not trendy enough. For example, workers at the Organized Crime Division of Mexico's Attorney General's office in Mexico City use VeriChip for access control to high-level security areas. Some 50 state employees had them implanted. Go figure. Meanwhile, another kind of futuristic thing has come home to roost. Gizmodo reports that this man had his thumb replaced by his toe. The operation was a success, although he still can't fully move the thumb naturally. I can bend it, but I hope to be able to do so soon. It rotates and I can give it a good wiggle. I'm so pleased that I had it done. It's just such a relief that I'll be able to get back to work soon. I would have to return to surgery to remove the wires currently structuring the bones in place, but otherwise everything is perfectly fine. And this is the kind of stuff advances in technology and medicine should be used for, actually helping people instead of trying to enslave everyone. But is that the trend? New Zealand has a new food bill to make growing food a government privilege rather than a human right. More of the deteriorations under the world government-led Codex Alimentarius. As far as enforcement, the NZ bill also authorizes private companies to deploy food safety officers that can raid private property without warrant. Not only will these food safety officers be permitted to draw weapons against those they are pursuing, but they will also be immune from criminal and civil prosecutions for their illegal actions. And Ethan Huff at Natural News goes on to discuss how they don't want off-the-grid farmers or independent people growing their foods. Everything, of course, is put in place to streamline Monsanto and other big agri firms. You saw this also in Canada, where the new border deal, U.S. border deal, will also encompass a push for the adoption of the U.S. Food Safety Modernization Act in Canada, essentially streamlining approval of Monsanto's GMOs and a whole lot more. Now I will throw to Alex's exclusive interview with Art Acevedo. That is the police chief here in Austin, of course. Alex has interviewed him before. You heard him on the show today, but you haven't seen this. We'll go to it now, and then Alex will close out the show. Have a good night.
I want to thank Aaron Dykes for doing the news this evening, but now we're going to go to an interview with Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo, who actually has the courage to come into the belly of the beast. You know, I had you on the radio today, and we talked about a lot of issues, but, I mean, are you concerned about the direction America's going? I mean, undoubtedly, more and more Big Brother technologies, TSA. What do you think of the TSA going in people's pants and strip searching old ladies?
Well, I mean, I don't know about strip searching people. I think they got a job to do, and we all fly, and our families fly, so their job is to keep us safe. So I just think that you just have to make sure that you do things right, and that you really have a reason to strip search somebody, and not just do it just because of whatever.
But you guys would arrest somebody before you had to strip search them, and then there's special procedures. I mean, now they just take old people and stuff. I mean, people could have a bomb up their rear end. Are we going to have proctology exams?
Yeah, no, I don't know. The bottom line is...
I mean, is that land of the free, home of the brave? Should the American symbol be a rubber glove?
No, I would hope not. I hope that never becomes the case. The bottom line is they've got a job to do. Most of those people actually do a decent job. Every once in a while, you've got people that are overzealous, just like you have in any profession. But there is a need to ensure the safety of airline travelers, but we have to make sure that we do it right.
But it sets the precedent that the government has to keep you safe when the government can't keep you safe. I mean, now the TSA is running checkpoints on highways.
I haven't heard that other than at the airport itself. So
no, they've expanded it.
See, I haven't seen that, but we know that some of the transportation infrastructure is probably susceptible to issues in terms of homeland security issues. So, but I think that we've got sufficient resources out there where I'm not sure there's a great need, but I'd have to get more information on it.
Well, I mean, my concern is more and more the feds come in with these mandates, because I saw all over the country federal grants for the blood-taking checkpoints. And tell me about your blood-sucking program. I mean, you pioneered that, didn't you?
No, I didn't pioneer. Well, here I did in Austin.
Art, Count Dracula, Aceveda?
Look, a lot of people get killed by drunk drivers, and we're not going to be able to save everybody. But if I can turn a life around or save a life by creating an atmosphere for drunk drivers where they know that we are going to use every lawful means to gather evidence to hold people accountable for a choice, because drunk driving is a choice. I mean, after a couple of drinks, and you choose to drive after a couple of drinks, you're really putting yourself and others at risk. I don't think it's a bad thing for the people of the city of Austin, for the police department to have a reputation of being very aggressive against drunk drivers. Hopefully that encourages people not to drink and drive, and at the end of the day, I hope it saves lives.
But there's moves to have breathalyzers in all new cars. Half the Austin squad cars couldn't even turn on if that happened.
Yeah. No, I can guarantee you that 99.9% of the squad cars would turn on if that happened.
I'm just joking.
But remember, there's no, but you'll notice,
cops are famous drinkers.
But you'll notice I didn't say 100%.
Is that a stereotype?
That's a stereotype. I think that culturally, there's been a lot of officers that the alcohol has been a big part of policing, just like any other macho type thing. But I think that today's officers, higher educated, than they were 30 years ago. A lot of them have outside interests. A lot of them pursue graduate degrees. And so you don't see the culture of cops going out and partying like you might have seen 25, 30 years ago. With Joseph Wambaugh wrote about the Shortstop. There's a place that I've actually been to on Sunset Boulevard that was a big cop hangout. I think the culture is changing.
What about texting, though? I've seen statistics where it's like 4 times more dangerous than drinking and driving.
Texting and driving is very dangerous. That's why you can't text and drive in the city of Austin. Mike Martinez was the mayor pro tem, he's now a council member, was a big proponent of that, brought it forward. We passed it. We've actually written tickets for it. But
I do see people swerving everywhere while they're texting.
Well, what it is that when you see people swerving, then you go to pass them, you look over it, and you see what they're doing.
No, I see it. I saw a giant 18-wheeler driver down in Corpus Christi hauling natural gas, literally texting while he was driving.
That's scary. That's why they need to use some of these new applications like the iPhone has, a new iPhone where you can actually have your little earpiece in with a
talk,
and it actually reads it back to you. I actually bought that because I'm always working.
No, that is useful. But I mean, you've got to go here in about 5 minutes. But I want you to be able to make some points that you've got and ask you, why are you here? I mean, why are you interfacing with the community and that change in policing? But getting back to the no refusal, I know people who aren't even drinking and they've been pulled over here in other cities and they say, we're going to breathalyzer, and you say no, so they take you to jail. The legislature tries to take your license. What about the Fifth Amendment? What about people's rights to say no, and then you guys respond, fine, we'll just take your blood?
The Fifth Amendment speaks to interrogation, to speech. It doesn't really speak to the blood. The Fourth Amendment is probably more of what people would talk about.
Person, papers, and effects.
Yeah, so here's the deal about that. The Supreme Court many years ago ruled, the United States Supreme Court, that because of the exigency of the circumstances. In other words, if I believe you're under the influence of alcohol, that there is an exigency there to get the evidence, because with every hour, the evidence is dissipating.
Yeah, there's also the public safety emergency, that if you are drunk, it's a clear and present danger.
Well, absolutely. And so the bottom line is that they ruled many years ago that you don't even need a search warrant. That if you have reasonable suspicion, probable cause to believe the person is under the influence, potentially under the influence, because of the exigency, that as long as state law allows it, which in Texas it does, you can actually do warrantless blood search warrants. And there's actually, throughout the state of Texas, search warrants, there's actually non-consensual blood testing without a search warrant if you have prior arrests and convictions for DWI, if somebody's been injured, somebody's been transported to the hospital.
Sure, that's an emergency. But going back in time, we didn't have all this. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, we always get more and there's always an excuse. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And then earlier on the radio show, I brought up to you Fast and Furious, government caught lying, shipping guns into Mexico. I brought up on the news the troops being ordered to grow the opium. My point is, there's a greater danger in government getting too much power. It will always be abused than all the excuses government has of how this is going to keep people safe. And I'm out there driving all the time. I'm sure there are some drunk drivers. I see it occasionally driving home late at night. They're either driving real slow or they're swerving. But I see more dangerous people on the phone, putting their makeup on and texting. I know it isn't as sexy as stopping the drunk drivers.
But you know what? People putting on makeup, that's an unsafe, to me, the safe speed for that vehicle when you're applying makeup is 0. You shouldn't be driving. So I would be writing somebody a citation for driving at a speed that's unsafe for the conditions. In other words, I've actually investigated as a cop a head-on collision, and this was on back when I was a road patrol officer, where a lady's sitting there doing this, putting on her makeup, crosses the center double yellow lines on a surface street, and crashed head-on, double fatality, because somebody's put on their makeup. So, yeah, you're right that there are laws, but I think that as technology evolves, as the distractions evolve, we have to catch up to it. I mean, it's just not a good idea.
What do you think about police all over the country taking cell phones and downloading their contents at traffic stops?
Oh, you can't do that.
Michigan's been doing it.
Well, I don't know how they get.
What about Louisiana saying, we don't even need probable cause, but we're going to search your car off a hunch?
I believe that if that were the case, that you'd probably get thrown out in court. It would not withstand judicial review. You have to have probable cause, or you have to have consent.
I think the best news of our interview, though, is since you've been police chief here 5 years from Southern California, you are now more pro-Second Amendment and do believe more guns, less crime?
You know, what's interesting is that, I came from that very strict place in California, and when I first got here, I think that guns belong in the hands of law-abiding Americans. I don't think the guys are out selling dope or committing robberies or involved in criminal enterprises, we should allow them to have guns. But absent that, or somebody that's getting ready to go psycho because they've got some serious mental health issues. But absent that, I strongly believe in the Second Amendment. The gun carry law here, I think, is one of the best in the nation. But now the Congress has just passed it where we have to, as Texans, have to take the permit that's issued in another state, and reciprocity is mandatory. Again, I believe in states' rights, and I don't want to have to take and accept a permit from a state where they might decide to give it to somebody who has no business having a gun. Because here in Texas, what I love about Texans is we do it right. People have to qualify at the range. They have to take a gun safety class. And gun ownership is something that's taken very seriously here. And is done right. I think Texas should be the model for the rest of the country.
Well, we can debate that all day, but the statistics are there. Within 3 years of a concealed carry, on average, crime rates go down over 20%.
I think that that there is some
robberies, muggings, things like that.
I think there's some tremendous benefits to it. But see, in Texas, we force people to show that they're serious gun owners, that they're responsible gun owners. We force them to go to the range to show that they have proficiency, that when they shoot, that there's a chance.
Well, you're talking about concealed carry, and I do agree. Everybody out buying guns right now, I hope they learn how to use them, because then it's going to be worthless if we don't know how to use it.
Absolutely, and you have to make sure that you have that that you have the withdrawal, that if you're going to have it and somebody breaks into your home, that you're going to be willing to use it, because next thing you know, it gets turned on you. So
how do folks, what website do they visit to learn more about your initiatives here in Austin?
just they can go to the Austin Police
/ Count Dracula. All right. Well, Chief Art Aceveda, thank you for coming in with us today.
It's great to see you.
I appreciate
Merry
it.
Christmas and happy holidays.
In closing, you say your wife gets sick of you listening to the show.
I do listen to the show, and she says it's depressing. She doesn't like me listening to it.
I think deep down, like Darth Vader, you're a good guy, and I think that's why you're listening.
Hey, you know what? Darth Vader is my #1 character. I love Darth Vader, and the reason I do is because I always knew that there was good in him, and that sooner or later that good will overtake the bad, and that's why I love Darth Vader.
Wait, I think I heard you on Jeff Ward say that. That's why I brought up Darth Vader.
This is my favorite. I love Darth Vader. Absolutely. I think that character shows that is what I like to think about people. There's good, inherent good in everyone, and it's just a matter of finding it.
All right, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, that's it for this edition of Infowars Nightly News, a split show, half with Aaron Dykes and half with Alex Jones. I'll be back for the full transmission, Lord willing, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central. Don't forget, until Christmas, we're offering that yearly special, 44% off a yearly membership at prisonplanet.tv, and it is your support that helps us get the word out and also helps us write reports and things like the one that you have seen us put out on the FEMA camps being activated. Great job to the crew. I'll see you back tomorrow.
Land soil. Other plans announced in 2008 to station some 20,000 troops inside the U.S. for domestic security. U.S. Army War College orders preparing for civil unrest and a whole lot more. Of course, there's bills like the National Emergency Centers Act, H.R. 645, that Alex has covered at length, establishing the chain of command for these detention centers, putting it all under the Homeland Security Department. And why not? Of course, things are only going to get worse economically, and that is the direction we're headed there. Among other things, Obama is reiterating his call for a national police force, which would be a civilian police to match the size and power of our armed forces, in the words of his 2009 statement, which would all be a, quote, stability police in the modern day, in the age of 9/11, we have more detention camp news. Developments there from Paul Joseph Watson. Detention camp order follows preparations for civil unrest. Of course, we reported last night that KBR is subcontracting to outfit its emergency environment centers, and we detailed that in Kurt Nemo's article. But Paul points out how they've been preparing for civil unrest since at least 2008 in the open. KBR, of course, had the contract in 2006 to build the camps. Now U.S. authorities are preparing for such eventualities on home soil, with major police departments like the NYPD staging mobilization exercises to train police to prepare for civil disorder in the United States. And there's been lots of other stuff as well. The Army Times reporting that there would be some 400,000 troops on home conditions of economic unrest. We have that clip now.
Next, Obama ordered the Defense Department to issue DoD Directive 1404.10, establishing a 1 million person civilian army under his control. Simultaneously, Obama launched USAService.org. The new website deceptively masquerades as a federal agency, but in reality is a recruiting tool building a separate, completely private army outside of government that takes orders directly from Obama's controllers. Barack Obama has refused to rescind Presidential Decision Directive 51, signed by George W. Bush. The directive plainly states the president is a dictator and that Congress is ceremonial.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded.
Of course, this has nothing to do with Barack Obama, the president, love him or hate him or whatever. This has to do with continued executive overreach. It's been going on at least since the Civil War, but it's been especially troublesome with the last 4 or 5 presidents. And you see what happens under Rex 84 and other continuity of government plans, all these secret detention plans, contingencies for emergencies of whatever kind, all under the executive branch and all these agencies, including FEMA and Homeland Security, all very dangerous. Now, if you weren't paying attention last night, Kurt Nemo and Alex Jones broke an exclusive. We got documents from inside Kellogg Brown Root, the Halliburton subsidiary, and they are now contracting services. Good evening and welcome to this Wednesday, December 7, 2011 edition of the Infowars Nightly News. I'm Aaron Dykes. Coming up later in the program, Alex did an exclusive interview with Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo. You probably saw him on the show today, but you didn't see this, so stay tuned. Of course, it is the 70th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack, the false flag that was ubiquitously known around the world before 9/11. That, of course, among other things, led to World War II, U.S. entry into anyway, as well as Japanese internment camps.